Hey everyone, welcome back to Gay Men Going Deeper. I am Michael Diorio. Here we have Matt, Callan, and Reno. And today, guys, we want to talk about dating. We want to share some of our good, bad, and ugly experiences with dating. And hopefully, we can get a good conversation going for our next Zoom hangout. So, why don't we start with Matt, since this was your amazing idea to get
Me?
into
Oh
this topic? Tell us some of your
gosh.
experiences with dating.
Oh God. Okay. Well, I just recently put myself back on the dating market after being off for almost 2 years. And I had a really interesting experience the other night. And um, I went to go meet a guy for a date and he didn't show up. And I was like, what the hell? So totally
You
got
got
ghosted.
ghosted?
I totally got ghosted. And
Who's
Oh,
gotten ghosted here? Just us? Oh
I've
wow.
been
Okay.
ghosted. I've been
Yeah.
ghosted.
yeah,
I've been mosted. Do you guys know
what
what
is it?
mosted is? Mosted is when they go above and beyond and show you, oh, I'm in love with you. I want you. I want to be with you, all this. And
Yeah.
then they cut it off. Like, oh, no, sorry. You're not the one I thought. Okay, bye. Like,
Wow.
Sorry.
just as you start to fall for them. It's wild. Anyway, sorry.
That's
Go,
like
go, go for it.
catfishing almost. It's so gross.
Yeah. Anyway.
Um, but yeah, so we were just chatting like very lightly on Tinder, and then we were gonna meet and go for a walk, and it was a no-show. So, I'm kind of at an interesting stage in dating right now, and I think I'm trying to find my truth around it all and kind of figuring out what it's about. And I think one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring this vision forward with the GMB was because I was struggling in this area, in dating and finding connections. And a lot of gay men were just seeking out sex, and they didn't have a lot of capacity for intimacy and vulnerability and authenticity and these things that I was really, really digging deep within myself to cultivate. And I kind of have come to the conclusion that the people that we're attract or the people that I'm attracting are the people that I need in order to grow and evolve. And up to this point, I've needed avoidant men to evolve. All my boyfriends have been avoidant. I'm super drawn to avoidant men, and I feel like if I'm in a room and there's 30 men and 29 of them are checking me out and one of them isn't, I will be drawn to the guy that's not checking me out. And it's so strange. And I know where this comes from. With it comes from the relationship with my father, and basically always seeking validation, always needing approval, and never getting it. And then what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to recreate these experiences with a different outcome, with an outcome in my favor, and it's never going to work, right? But what I've been learning in this process is how to cultivate worth, how to cultivate a deep sense of self, how to hold space for myself. And now I'm starting to attract guys who have more capacity for these deeper things. But so I've come to the conclusion that what's happening now is the universe is kind of weeding these people out for me. And I think the more bold and large and bright I let my light shine, the more I intimidate people, and specifically dating potential people, because they might see something in me that feels very threatening to them. And I think when people aren't in their wholeness and they see someone who is there, they don't want to go there, right? So I kind of chum it up as that. And I'm actually really, really good at handling rejection now because of that philosophy, because the universe is just really bringing me aligned to what I'm meant to be aligned to. Um, so yeah, to say the least, dating has been challenging for me, very challenging for me. And yeah, because I think not a lot of gay men seem to be aligned to the same values that I have around connection. And at least maybe not the ones I'm attracting. So um, yeah, and then something I'm also learning about myself too is that um, I'm demisexual. Do you guys know what that means?
No.
Not many people do, but it's basically where you require emotional connection to have a sexual,
Yeah.
to be sexually turned on. Never been this way. And just in the last 2-3 years, I've like morphed into a demisexual. And I didn't know there was a term for it. And this is all new to me, kind of learning that. But there's different levels. Like it's a continuum of being demisexual, where some people can still be turned on by somebody physically, but they require emotional connection to be turned on sexually. And so that also kind of limits the pool, because only so many men in the dating pool are willing to allow themselves to be seen and connected to. So it's just been a bit of a struggle for me, to be honest, dating. And but I've one of the good things that's come out of dating is actually a lot of my gay male friends came from first dates. Meet on Tinder, and we have a date, and there's no like sexual chemistry, but there's platonic chemistry, and so it's been really cool that way. So dating for me is quite a fun experience. I enjoyed. I like getting to know people. And maybe what I'm doing now is I'm bringing a bit more of a lighter version of Matt into my dates, because of before I would be like, you know, have to have my checklist checked off. If you didn't meet every single checklist, it's like, no, he's not the great guy. And I would just kind of write him off. But I think now I'm allowing people to check off the checklist organically, maybe. And then also, if they don't meet the checklist, why can't I just have fun? Right. And learn about them, and allow them to teach me things about myself, and not have to make them my everything. So yeah, that's kind of been my flavor of experiences in the last little bit.
Wow. That's so cool. I never heard of the demisexual thing, but like,
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's just how I've been the whole time, because I've had a different experience where I've always been emotionally available, and I, regardless whether the other person can fully reciprocate that, I bring that to the table. So I know I'm going to be open and having a great time. And through that, I almost make it comfortable enough for them to have a good time, because I'm who I am. I'm fully in my presence. I'm fully in myself. So I'm not worried about their stuff, because it's like, okay, well, here's mine, and you can either come to the party or not, but we're still going to have a good time regardless. Or well, I'm going to have a good time regardless,
Yeah.
whether or not that's going on. I've even had a guy like get up and be like, I have to leave, and like right about as we're about to have sex, because he's like, you're too, like, you're here, like this is too much for me. And I was like, what's too much? And he's like, I just came over here for like a good fuck and like a good time, and this is like, you're really present, and you're just, this is really emotionally overwhelming for me. And I was just like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. But then most of the time it was like the other flip side of it, where it was just like, whoa, like this was great, this, I've never done this before. And I was like, that's because I'm emotionally available.
Yeah.
And then in regards to dating, I never dated a lot growing up. I had a boyfriend, and then I just wouldn't be interested, because I'm pretty intuitive in the sense that I know who's going to be a match and who's not. And I like the adventure of figuring out, okay, well, maybe they're a good friend, maybe not. But as I got older, going on dates, I stopped thinking of them as be all end alls, which kind of blocked me from having good dates before. I was like, this has to be all or nothing. And I was like, I couldn't date more than one person, because I was like, no, I'm just going to focus on this one person. And I was like putting too much energy into that one person. And like, that's so much pressure to put on one person to be like, be perfect right away for me so that you can be my boyfriend. It's like, no, oh my goddess, no. So now dating, I turned it into something fun and enjoyable. And I look at it from a different point of view of like, cool, I'm going to go meet somebody new. I don't look at it as like, we're going to have a date. I look at it as like, cool, I'm going to go meet somebody new, and I'm going to like find out stuff about them. And if there's stuff there that we get on with, awesome. If not, then no worries about it. I actually met my roommate, my current roommate. We went on a date back when I had flown from Dubai to Toronto for a holiday for a week. And it was also my birthday to celebrate with friends and stuff. And I went on a date with him during that week, and I was like figuring out if I wanted to move to Toronto or not. He's a fantastic guy, but it wasn't there like romantically in that sense. But then like fast forward to like a year and some months later, and I was looking for a place and he needed a roommate. He's like, well, I already know you're a fantastic person, like we had a great day, you're a good person. It wasn't there that way, but that means we know we'll be great roommates. And it's been like the best, most ideal situation. So like you, Matt, like I've made really good friends from dating, but I've also dropped apps, and like the best dates and the best relationshipy type things that I've gone through, or those experiences I've had, have been from complete strangers that have not been, well, not complete strangers, but not from dating apps. Like my first boyfriend I saw at a club way back in the day, over a decade ago, and was like, I'm going to date him. That's my first boyfriend. And then being here in Toronto, since getting rid of the apps, because when I moved here, I got rid of everything. The first guy I dated, Mark, I saw him out in the village, and I was just like, wow, that guy has an energy about him. I really want to talk to him. Not like I need to make this guy my boyfriend, but like there's something about him. I want to get to know him. Walked up and was like, hey, how's it going? My name's this. And just started chatting. Was like, do you want to get to know each other? But because I'd taken that pressure off of like, you have to be my be all end all, or like, I need to be something for you. It was just a simple, easy conversation. If it was there, it was there. If it wasn't, cool, move on to the next one. Dated for a while, that was cool. Figured out, okay, we're not romantically matched, but you know, good people. And then this other person I also dated, I met him at a friend's house at a friend's party before COVID happened. And then we went, and he was on the dodgeball league that I was in. And so then we reconnected again once I wasn't dating the other person. It was like, hey, do you want to go on a date? Sure. And then we dated, but it was all very organic and natural. And I think it's because I had taken a step back and stopped thinking that I need somebody to complete me. I need somebody to be there for me. I need all of these things. And I had focused so much and had done so much work for past years on myself, just being enough for me, that it took that pressure off that other person to be anything for me. And it was just like, if you're not fully realized, but if you're a realized person who's conscious and who's awake, and you've got your stuff going on and I'm the same, and we come together and it gets even better, that's awesome. That's what I'm looking for. But that stuff kind of just comes organically and naturally to me now that I've stepped away from like, I need this, I need to go on a date, or I need this guy to be something for me. Because you put all of this expectation and pressure on another person, of course you're going to scare them away, because they're like, oh my God, I can't be this for you. I'm just trying to meet a new person and see what happens. So when you take that pressure off, I find that that's been the biggest shift for me in regards to dating. Whether they've worked out or not worked out, the experiences have been much better than when I was like on the apps, trying to date, focusing, like, I need to do this, I need to do that. So that's my little 2 cents about dating recently.
I'm going to echo, as always, Kellen and I are so similar. I echo that sentiment completely. And I will say, similar to you, Kellen, actually, you're probably the only other person I know. I've had 4 long-term, like 2 years plus relationships, and all of them I've met organically. Not one of them was online. For all the time I've spent on like Grindr, Tinder, Scruff, Hinge, whatever they are, Bumble, all of my long-term partners I've met organically. And to go onto your point about wanting someone to be what you want them to be and trying to be who you think they want you to be, that's what makes dating, I think. And so many people will tell me, oh, gay dating is terrible and this and that. And I'm like, well, you're putting too much pressure on yourself to show up as who you think they want you to be. And then secondly, you're putting pressure on them saying you need to be this, 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 this. And so like, even on just a first date, you're trying to fill all this information on like one guy in like what, an hour, 2 hours, whatever that may be. And like, if you just show up and put all of that aside, and like Helen said, like, I agree, like energy, I'll see someone in a room and I'm like, like, I'm going to talk to you by the end of this night, whether we become friends or whether we fuck or whether we go on a date. I'm not too fussed, but I will find something to connect with them on. And either way, it always ends up being beneficial in some way. So yeah, I think talking to guys who have a hard time with dating, you know, they'll like to blame a lot of things, but when I ask them, okay, well, what are you looking for? And they'll name like 40 things. And I'm like, so you're expecting one person to be all of these things for you. And on the first day, you're basically going to be judging them and interviewing them, right? Like, it doesn't make for a fun experience. So go in with, you know, I'd like to say no expectations, but that's kind of hard. I realize that could be a hard ask, but go in with just being yourself and letting the other person show up as they are. And when you give both of you guys that breathing room to just like, okay, like, you know, like, let's just hang out, be with each other, and not have to like interview each other or like impress each other too much. Of course you want to impress them, right? You want to wear something cute, get your hair did, whatever. That I think has been the biggest biggest piece for me. And I think my most recent experience dating, I don't think the guy is in the group, but he had asked me out like, I'm going to say 10 times. And I said, no, I'm not dating. I'm not dating. Like, there's a lot going on in my life. I'm just not able to handle that on top of it. And eventually he just won me over with some very smooth words. And I was like, fine, fuck, I'll go on a date with you. But I was like, I'm not looking, this is gonna be shitty. I'm stressed, I'm busy, whatever, but I'll just do it because you keep asking me. I really hope he's not watching this. And so we went on the date and I just showed up like, hey, here's who I am. I told you like everything that's going on in my life. And we just had the best time because I wasn't expecting anything from him. And I had already in my mind decided this wasn't going anywhere. But lo and behold, we're going on our third date this week.
Of course you are.
So that's what happens when you let go of needing someone to be something and letting go of expectations.
I love that. Yeah. It's interesting, like as time has progressed, I've noticed you said something, Michael, that really stood out to me, and it's like this, you know, this notion of like being oneself when we're on a date. And I think because I've become so much more comfortable being myself and being with myself, it's like it's a lot easier to be myself and be with myself when I'm on a date. And that's been like this, I don't know, this really interesting journey and process for me, I think. But I wanted to share something. So yesterday I was having, this is kind of funny actually, it's so fitting. Yesterday I was having a bit of a moment because I'm on this like wild journey in Western Canada right now. And I was out for a walk. I like going for these evening walks along Sunset Beach in Vancouver. And, you know, I was just kind of like processing my emotions and whatnot, and, you know, what was coming up for me. And I stopped and I was.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, we can't.
He literally stopped.
He just froze on us.
Oh no.
I'm here.
Wait,
okay, he's there. Okay.
Sorry. Jeez. So anyway, I'm on one of these apps, and then I continue my walk, and I had seen this really cute like European guy and his friend walk by earlier, and we kind of made eyes and we kept walking, and, you know, I thought nothing of it. Well, then I see him again later, and this time like we really make eyes, and I'm feeling kind of funny about it. So, you know, I'm sort of sitting along the pier playing on my phone, and I notice he walks over to the edge of the pier and sort of leans over the railing, and he keeps looking back at me, and I'm like, this guy he's like flirting with me. I think there's something happening here. So I walk over and I start chatting with him. I'm like, hey, how's your evening going? You know, what are you up to? Are you from the area? And we get into this conversation, and it was, so I've always said, like, I love all things Italian, right? Like the food, the culture, the men, the architecture, like, yeah, right? I know, yeah. So I love it all, love it all. And so anyway, this guy turns out to be Italian. He's got this like beautiful accent, and we got into this lovely conversation. He's like asking me, you know, what I do, and I was like, oh, this question. Anyway, I told him, I'm like, well, you know, I'm a life coach among other things, and he's like, no way. He's like, he mentioned that he was actually planning to become a life coach himself shortly, and so we just had this incredible conversation. Like we were talking about like the things that make us weird, and like we touched on religion briefly. Like we just went there, and I don't even know how long this guy and I were speaking for. He was also very forward, which I really appreciate.
Italians are very forward.
I know, I loved it. I was like, this is really sexy. And so anyway, he says to me, it's like, yeah, can we exchange numbers and have dinner and go for another walk sometime? And I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. And so I messaged him after. He sent me a voice note saying it was a pleasure to meet me and he's looking forward to getting to know me better. And I was like, of course this would happen. You know, why wouldn't this, you know? So it's I wanted to share that because it's really interesting to me, how when I'm not online, like you guys had said, some of the most interesting things seem to happen to me offline. Like it's fascinating. I'm still on the apps, but you know, even when I look at a couple of my exes, like I met those guys offline, you know, and they're still really good friends of mine. One of them I met in Bali. Like yeah, it's really fascinating. I have this really high value on romance. So I love these little moments, and I'm feeling really excited about what happened yesterday. And what I noticed is that when I walked away, even though there was this narrative inside of me that was like, oh my gosh, this is the guy that I've been talking about for years. Because I used to say to my friends, like, I'm gonna meet this beautiful like Italian European man in this like unlikely way, and we're gonna end up together, and that's gonna be it, right? That was the story. And so there was a part of me that was like, oh my gosh, is this it? Is this him? Like, this is the moment I've been talking about for years. So I mean, whether or not it is, it was fun to play in that like that imagery and that story, but to also be able to let it go and just be like, you know what, there really is magic and romance and beauty in this world, and it shows up in the most unexpected times and unexpected ways. And so that to me feels more exciting to entertain than to hold on to this idea that he might be in some way like the one or something. Like, who knows, maybe, right? um, but yeah, it definitely showed me how far I've come, you know, over the years. Because, you know, there would have been a time back in the day, in my earlier days of dating, where I definitely would have sort of become consumed by the idea of being with this person and how complete my life is going to be as a result of that, you know? And that's just not the case anymore. And the other thing I wanted to say related to what Matt was saying before is like, I can totally relate to this interest and pursuit of like the one person in the room who's like not interested in me. I always called it like forbidden fruit syndrome, where like it was like, oh, that guy's like straight, but I'm sort of getting a vibe, I'm gonna go for him. Or like, you know, this guy's not really giving me a lot of attention, so like he's the one guy in the room that I'm interested in winning over, and you know, and maybe even seducing in some capacity, or like, or dating, or what have you. And it still comes up from time to time, like, a challenge, okay, let's do it, right? But I also recognize, like you, that it's kind of this like, dad was not present and, you know, and emotionally available. And so you know, maybe this will heal that in some way, or, you know, it's sort of that thing. And I've noticed that change since, and it's really lovely. And it's also fun to just kind of notice it when it does come up, like, oh, there's that thing again. I know I'm really feeling this guy, you know, because he probably checks off all the boxes for like my wounded self, you know.
Yeah.
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 Rejection is the greatest aphrodisiac.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite quotes.
And I just want to make a PSA that I am no longer that person. So if you're interested, don't play the guy, the 1%, because it's going to turn me off now. And I think
You
how
know.
I got myself to this place is I've solely worked on my self-worth, because before I would attract guys that like Reno said, they stimulated my abandonment wounds, and they made themselves appear more attractive than they actually were, because I was using them to energetically heal things, or not even heal. I was using them to energetically put band-aids on things that needed to be healed. So I've gone in and I've kind of done this self-worth work. And before, you know, prior to doing the self-worth work, I was attracting men who did not align to my lifestyle values, and I was bringing them into this relationship and trying to change them. And that's one of the biggest learnings I've had from all my relationships, is that I have to come at, well, first of all, I had to heal my low self-worth, and then I had to come at relationships with values, not expectations leading the way. Because values are what I own about myself. I need this to feel happy, whereas expectations are, I need you to do this to make me feel happy. And I think that's the biggest distinction that I've noticed for myself. And now where I'm at is I feel like I'm ready to start to align to somebody that's going to just, I don't need to do a lot more healing in this attachment area, because I've done it. So now I feel like I'm ready to start to attract to somebody who can show up and is just going to align to the values that I have, and I'll align to the values that they have, and it won't need to feel forced. I've also gotten really good at listening to my gut. My intuition is my best friend. It leads me and it's never wrong. So in my 3 previous long-term relationships, I got red flags and bad tummy feelings before the relationship, and I didn't listen. I was like, no, I'll try and change them and I'll make them who I need them to be for me, right? And I was like I was leading with my love fantasy. I love that term, because it's like, I have this fantasy of how I need love to be and how I need someone to show up for me to feel good. And it's like, I'll just mold them into doing this. And it's like, that will never work, friends. It will never work.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say those guys, I can relate to that as well. Like, those guys were my favorite. The ones that I believed I could fix, right? It's like,
Project.
I'm gonna be the one to change them. I'm gonna be the one to make them emotionally available, heal their hearts, connect them to their body, to that part of them that is compassionate and has the capacity to love. And that was the story, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for so long, I got confused between what was my activated anxious attachment style and what was love, right? Because they were stimulating that part of me that felt like I needed to hustle for their affection. And then when I would get it, I would feel so good. But when they would take it away, I would feel wounded, right? So it became this cat and mouse game of attachment. And I'm curious to know your guys' attachment styles, but I'll let Michael.
I just wanted to add that what I've noticed is that people who, like, those people will be attracted to you and you will be attracted to them. So it takes a high level of awareness to kind of realize that magnetic attraction is actually makes sense, I guess, energetically, but you need to like override it with your awareness.
Yeah.
And I think like givers are naturally attracted to takers. Takers are attracted to givers. And we have to be very careful, I think. And I love what you said, Matt, about values. Anyone who watches my videos knows that I talk a lot about values. And so that is 100% know your values and just put the expectations aside, stick to the values, lead with those, and everything else will just fall into place.
And your values, I think, evolve with time and awareness, and that's one thing that I've noticed. Like, what I once valued in dating and relationships and once pursued in dating and relationships has definitely evolved. Like, I used to date and I would look for someone who would complete the parts of myself where I felt like inadequate, So back in the day, I had this sort of fantasy that I would meet some guy and he would take care of me, and that would be it, He'd be older and, he would do well in business. He would have invested in real estate in some capacity. And, I started chasing this idea of being like the trophy boy. That's totally what I wanted back then. And as time has gone on and I've developed this more, this beautiful relationship with myself and this higher standard and awareness and capacity for discernment, I've started to question. I started to question my preferences. Why are these the things that I'm pursuing, and why does it seem to not work out? What is the pattern that's happening here? And I started to notice, like, oh, there's a reason why I'm pursuing these particular men. It's because I feel like this part of me is incomplete, and I'm looking to complete it outside of myself instead of within myself. And so now, I find my attachments are lesser and lesser when it comes to dating, and I'm more interested in sitting down with a person and getting to know them. And it's become a lot less about their physical appearance as well. I still value certain aspects and attributes, but what I find is that it's a deeper feeling for me. It's a deeper feeling, and also a sense of like where our values line up and where we complement each other as opposed to compensate. you know, for each other. So that's been huge, huge.
It's been so wild listening to you guys talk about dating and the processes that you've gone through, only because it's so different from my own personal experience. I've never experienced the I want the one that I can't have in the room syndrome. Like I I did that with girls in high school, and I did it because I knew they would never date me because I didn't want to date them. So I used it as like a protection of like, well, I don't want to tell people I'm gay, so I'm just going to tell them I have like a crush on this unrealistic expectation of this girl who would never date me. And then if they would, I would be like, oh no, just kidding. I like this other person now. Like it was kind of that game. But coming into the dating world, I always went with my gut. And that's why I knew the moment I walked into the club and I saw my first ex, my first boyfriend, I literally turned to my friend Amanda at the time, who now just got married to her girlfriend that they started dating at the exact same time, which is well over a decade ago. I looked at her and I was like, that's going to be my first boyfriend. And she like laughed at me. She's like, what? How do you know? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I just know. Like, I see him, I feel him. And like, boom, like for a year, we ended up dating. Like, it was wild. And for me, it wasn't about finding these things in other people. It was like I could tell that like he brought this energy of just love and caringness, which is something that I just naturally intuitively needed and wanted in my life. And it was just like, I just want to be with somebody who is like meets me in the middle. It's like we're not becoming one. It's like he's here, I'm here, and we just keep help each other vibrating up higher and higher and like building each other up more. And that's the energy that I've always been drawn to when like I see somebody and I see their energy and I'm like, ooh, I need to date you. And like in regards to like physical appearance, I've been like all over the map. Like I used to think like I have a type, like, you know, a specific type. They look like this hair color, this, that. But like all the guys that I've dated recently, like one was like 6'7", like 230-pound black guy who's beautiful. And then I go from him to like this super short, like 5'6" skinny guy that's like so far removed from each other that it's just like, okay, I guess I don't actually have a type. And I really am starting to believe more in myself that like it really is the energy that a person puts off for me. It really is. I look at you, I feel something, and that there's a vibe there. And if they don't feel the vibe, I'm like, cool, they're not feeling the vibe. But more often than not, the things that actually like work out, the guys I actually end up dating, like there's a vibe, they feel the vibe, I feel the vibe. And I'm like, cool, let's just go with it. And it's like this fun game of like, if it's not going to go somewhere, I'm okay with that now. But I always know that I'm going to like go up a little bit higher. Like we're going to help each other vibrationally move up this scale together. And we're going to help each other, you know, just dive deeper into our own selves, whatever that looks like, or whatever reason we've been brought together on this journey, however long it lasts. It's always going to be this like, we're helping each other move up. And that's how I've always looked at a relationship. And that's how I've always wanted a relationship, that it's like, I don't have like a checklist per se, but I have like a concept or an idea that I want this person to, you know, have goals and dreams in their lives. I want them to have some sort of a drive and a desire, because to me that's sexy, somebody who's going after something. And it doesn't have to be like crazy going after, but they have things, pardon me, things that they want to achieve in their life. And to me that's sexy. And that coming together would just be us like helping each other, like push each other further and like help each other get there. And like when one's low, the other one supports them so that we can keep moving ourselves up together. And I see so many dating relationship dynamics where it's like, that's not at all what they're going for. They're like, I want you to stay small so that I can feel better about myself. And I think in the gay realm, in the gay world, I see so much dating where it's like, posturing. Everybody's posturing to look a certain way and to act a certain way and to be a certain way. And like, if you're like, you know, the A gay and you have like the best body and you look a certain way, that like you could never date this guy over here, even though in your own head, in your own mind, that guy might want to date the other guy who doesn't have a perfect body, who is like a certain look, but he knows his friends will judge him. It's like, who fucking cares what your friends are going to say? If you feel the energy and that's what you want, why are you faking it and posturing just to look a certain way? Is that making you happy? Is that bringing you joy? Like, that's not what it's about. And we've created this system that it's like, you have to play this game. And I'm so over it and so tired of it. And that's why when people have seen the guys that I've been dating, they're like, wow, you really like jump all over the map. And it's like, it's because I don't give any fucks anymore. I'm not dating for you. I'm not dating for my friends. I'm dating for me, and I'm dating for what makes me happy and what I know is going to help my life move forward. And if have friends who are judgmental, you're not going to be my friends very long.
Mm-hmm. Let's answer that question, because I think that's a good question. You said, why do people do that? Why do they care so much about what other people think, to the point where they're willing to sacrifice their authenticity for the image of another authenticity that they think of?
Attachment.
It's like the gays that date themselves. You know, they're like, I want to date my exact identical twin who's like me in every single way. It's like, is that going to challenge you to grow and to like blossom into, you know, an even more evolved person, or somebody who's like pushing themselves to grow and all that?
Yeah.
Can I give it a stab at answering your question, Matt?
Say that again.
I'm going to give answering your question a stab based on what I've dealt with.
Sure. Yeah, I think we should all take a stab at it.
Okay. Let's see if I can make this short and sweet. When we can't give ourselves our own approval from within, like when you can't look in the mirror without anyone around you and say, I approve of you the way you are, love you, we try to feel that by having other people give us the approval we cannot give ourselves. Yeah. And in order for us to do that, we need to date the person society, your mother, your best friend, whoever thinks that you should date. So whether that's the pretty boy, the trophy husband, whatever it is, we think that by getting the approval of that other person, and then also our friends around us, that is going to fill that void of approval that we're seeking. But really, no, like as we all know, no one is going to be able to do that for you. Only you can do that for yourself. So that is my short answer on that one.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. What about you, Reno?
So my experience of this is that we have a God-sized hole/laundry list of attachments that we seek to fill externally, and they make up what we perceive to be our identity. And when those come into when they're challenged, when they're being jeopardized, when they're at risk, we feel threatened. And so because we don't recognize that we are not our attachments, and that our attachments are not in fact our life force nor our identity, we become afraid. We fear that we are going to die without them, and so we hold to them tightly. And what that looks like is the sacrificing of our authenticity, essentially. You know, I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to be done to sustain these attachments, which are not real and true in any way, but in my mind, in my story, they are. And if that means dating someone that will earn the sort of love and recognition of these people who say represent my safety, you know, my security, my identity, then I'll do it, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, we could sort of overlay this on so many things, but we're talking about dating specifically here, and so that's kind of the way that I look at it. And akin to what Michael was saying, I feel like what I've come to realize is that there's this process of unconditioning ourselves and allowing ourselves to experience the pain of releasing those attachments and challenging the notion that we are those things. And as we sit in that pain and we release it, we come to identify ourselves as something greater than those attachments. And then we're able to enter into dating and relationships from a place that is true and honest and genuine and whole, as opposed to incomplete and externally sourced. Mm-hmm. So that's my take.
I would say it comes down to values. Because if you think about it, we date people who treat us the way we're treating ourselves.
Yeah.
We date people who mirror back to us what we need to be, what we need to see and feel in our experience of the world. And if we're a gym buff and we're doing steroids and we're looking in the mirror and posting selfies, who do you think we're going to attract? We're going to attract people who offer us the experience of life of the same way that we're having it. And I think when it comes down to it, to peel it back even like further, it would be shame, right? Because shame is why we're engaging in these behaviors in the first place that make the dating world so shallow, because we feel like our outer shell needs to represent who we are more than the inner shell, because that's what we see. And I think that's why Brene Brown's work is so powerful for people, because it simply allows us to look at the inner us and let our shells go for a moment, right? And then we leave. I watched her show last night, Courage to be,
The one on Netflix?
yeah. And it was the second time I watched it, and I needed it so bad, you guys. I needed it so bad. I'm going to recommend that everybody watch it.
Oh, I already have.
But it was so perfect. It was just basically giving me permission to exist in the shell that I exist in, but also exist in the inner parts of the shell. And that's really what makes up who I am. And as I mature, that's what I'm drawn to. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be like, pretend that the shell doesn't matter, because when I see a good looking guy, I'm like, wow. But if it's missing the inner meat and potatoes, I'm just not interested. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what makes it happen. So I'd say, like, at the end of the day, it's shame. And that's why we do what we do. We want to take people from that journey of not being able to just to identify with these outer things, then they can start to identify with the inner parts of who they are.
Oh yeah, I resonate with that. Like, definitely, if like I can appreciate a beautiful outer shell. Like, of course, everybody can appreciate, and also everybody's perceptions of beauty is different. So I also appreciate that. Different people appreciate different things. And like, I love sometimes husky or big guys. Sometimes I like smaller guys. It's all about like, okay, whatever. But then the deeper purpose of everything is like, it keeps coming back to these, core values and core beliefs and core identities that we have all created for ourselves, but also the fact that so many people haven't done the work to figure out what the fuck those things are. So it's like, you might have all these beliefs and these values that you've taken from other people that you're like, oh, this must be true because somebody else told me that it's true for me. But you've not sat down and gone through the work and been like, what are my actual core values? What are my actual core beliefs that are true to me, to the center of myself, that I feel, even if they're different than what I've been told, or even if they're different than what I've thought I believed my whole life? I need to know what's true to me first. And once you get there, once you get to that space where you're like, okay, I've done this work, I know who I am now, that's when you can turn around and go, oh, well, I don't need you to be anything for me now. I am enough for me now. And I can now approach this dating world being like, cool, well, I'm good. Of course, there's always going to be work, but like, I at least know what those things are. I know what my core values are, what are going to make me happy over my lifetime. And then you start to look at people differently. It's like, cool, yeah, you have a beautiful outer shell, but you're not going to provide me with these things that are on my value list, because these are the things that are going to make me happy. And I don't need you to be anything other than yourself to fulfill that. But if you've not done any of that work, the chances are we're not really going to resonate on a lot. So the energy is not going to be there. Which is why Brene Brown, her stuff just hits people so deeply, because it's like triggering those parts of like, oh, maybe I should look at this. Like, maybe I should look at myself for once, because we're taught to not look at ourselves, and we're taught to like, do the outside world stuff. But it's the inner work that's really going to be the biggest part that shifts you and moves you along. And that's why a lot of the coaching work that I do is the inner work, the inner stuff, because I know that that's the core of what's going to actually shift you. You can do all the outside stuff, set all the goals, do all the things you want to do. But if you don't work on the inside stuff, if you don't shift that, the outside stuff is going to go back to the same old, because you've not addressed the actual problem. You've just put a Band-Aid on it. And that's what it comes down to with dating. I think it's just, with dating, there's all these people going around with Band-Aids on themselves, and they're trying to find other people with Band-Aids. Like, oh, your Band-Aid matches mine. Cool. And it's like, no, you got to get onto the inside stuff, so there are no Band-Aids. And then you look around and you find other people who don't have band-aids, and you go, oh, cool, those are my people. Those are my champs.
And scars are okay. Scars are good.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally fine.
Band-aids. I would like to add one more thing to what Callan just said, which I, of course, agree. And values are like the core of everything that I think most coaches teach. What I have clients do is first figure out, we go through a whole values exercise, but then on top of that, and this is, I think, sort of a really added a bonus, is I ask them, what do you bring to the table for a partner? And because so many times we're like, I want this, I want this, I want this. We know exactly the list of things we want from a partner. But so rarely do I find people who are able to say, oh, and here's the value that I bring to the relationship. Loyalty, communication, whatever that may be. I'm a great cook, it doesn't matter, just list them all, because when you get into that headspace of knowing what you bring to the table, you will naturally radiate at a higher vibration because you realize that you have the value and you have worth. And I think that has been a very positive experience that some of my clients have used, and I use that myself. So if I'm going on a date, instead of me worrying, is he going to be all these things? I remind myself, here's what I'm bringing to the table as well. Not in a cocky, arrogant way, but in a very self-assured, worthy way. That way you're not trying to, like Callan said, put all these Band-Aids on the wounds. You know, you can say, hey, I'm not great at this, but I do know that I would make a great partner because I'm loyal, I listen to you, I forgive easily, all of these other things, whatever they may be. So added bonus, know what you bring to the table.
Something just clicked for me as you guys were speaking. And like values aren't something that it's funny, values aren't necessarily something that I naturally sort of consider or assess when I'm entering into relationships. Like for me, it's more of like an intuitive process. I just kind of feel people, and I'm sure somewhere in there's like something happening around a matching of values. But I had this image, and it was really cool, as our values being sort of a filter through which we are able to sort of discern like who we engage with and who we don't. And so, you know, if a person's values match up, then they sort of make their way through that filter, so to speak. And if they don't, well, they're just not going to get through. And as time progresses, that filter becomes finer and finer and finer and finer. So essentially what's coming through is the purest of water, so to speak, you know, dirt free, pebble free, so to speak. And that was sort of the image that came to me when you guys were speaking about values. And I've never really looked at it that way or thought of it that way. But the more I do the work, the greater my discernment, the more powerful my filter, and the more pure what is coming through, you know. Yeah.
I like that. That's beautiful. How much time
I
do
want
you
to
have
point out
left?
something that stands out.
Sorry, Matt.
What was
Sorry, I
that?
didn't mean to cut you off. I was just looking at the timer and I was like, oh, how much time do we have left?
We have till 12:13.
Okay.
So we're good.
Cool.
We got 10 minutes. I just wanted to point something out that I noticed about human behavior and human psychology and the way that we work, because I encourage everybody that's listening, and I encourage you three to test this as well. When you're with somebody next time, ask them, what are you looking for in a partner? Guarantee you they will lead with what they don't want in a partner. And when we do that, we're sending mixed messages to the universe. We're telling the universe, this is what I don't want. So yeah, you might get those things you don't want, but you need to take it to that next level. And the law of attraction works in the way that it gives you what you want, right? So I always reframe that for people. What do you want? Make a list in your phone, or make a soulmate wish list, whatever you want to have. That's really reaffirming what you do want. Because it feels so foreign when you think about it, but it's like we tend to lead with our hurt and our pain. And I was doing that for a long time from all my previous relationships. I was like, oh my God, I definitely don't want a guy who does drugs. I definitely don't want this. I definitely don't want that. But it's reinforcing your pain and your hurt and the victim mentality, right? So I feel like it's really important to state to the universe what you do want.
I think
That's a good call.
It's true. I said I wanted Italian, and I got it. It took a while, but
I like the saying, you get what you are, not what you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
that's an Abraham quote. You get the vibes you actually are. You can't just kind of put lipstick on the pig.
Yeah.
And I love that too. So in addition to knowing what you want, I think you have to encompass that feeling yourself. So if you want someone who's kind and generous, embody kindness and generosity yourself, and that will come to you.
Yeah. Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah.
And I had this image come to me. There was like a tarot reading or something that was done for me years and years and years ago. And there was a woman, and this card came up, and it was this one where there was a person looking down at this one cup or this one thing, whatever it was. But then above, in like the clouds kind of a thing, there was like a hand offering like 3 more. But this person was so focused on the one cup that they did, and it wasn't full, and the other ones were. And it was this metaphor for like, if you're just focusing on one thing and it's something you don't have, you're missing out on all the stuff you could be having because you're not open enough to it. So to what Matt was saying, if you are thinking about those possibilities and you're opening yourself to those things, then that the universe has the energy to bring it to you. Your vibe attracts your tribe, and it's giving you those options. It's giving you that. But if you're just focusing on these things that you don't want, the universe is going to go, okay, well, they clearly keep saying this over and over again. Let's give them more of what they don't want. And if you're constantly doing that, it's just this perpetual circle. Whereas when Matt said that, I was like, oh no, the first thing I would be like, oh, loves and cuddles and this and like all the fun stuff. And that's what I always end up finding. So it's like the proof is in the pudding, Yeah.
I find it's not hard. I mean, I know this is not a popular opinion perhaps, but I love dating. I love meeting people. I love going on dates. Where I get stuck, guys, is once I catch the feels. Once I catch those feels, whether it's been 1 date or 10, like once I have that feeling of, oh, fuck, I like this guy, that's when sort of the vulnerability kicks in, because I'm like, okay, now we're not just having fun getting to know each other more. Now I actually have some kind of emotional investment in you. And that's what tends to trip me up, because I inevitably have to put myself out there and get kind of over my vulnerability and say, okay, I'd like to, take it to the next level, whatever that may be, or, I'd like to make it official, whatever that means. But either way, that requires something of me that I find that's what trips me up. And I'm like, oh, wait, what if, that's when all the fear comes in. What if he says no? And like, I don't mind getting rejected on the jump. Like I get rejected all the time on all the apps and whatever, that's fine. But once I like someone and then they reject me, that's the stuff that really hurts more. And that's where I still have a hard time processing that. But yeah, for me, it's having the being able to actually tell someone, listen, I like you, and I don't want this to just be casual anymore. That's sort of where I get stuck, if that happens.
What do you do with it then? Because I'm sure so many people can relate to that. What do you do with that fear? Like, how does it express itself?
I have a suggestion.
Go for it.
So the way I've always seen dealing with this, or the way that I've always worked through dealing with this, is that it's, once you get the feels, you have this idea and you've put that like, the expectation out there. And so the way I've combat that is having those things is good and it's fine, but to hold tightly to the expectation is in essence kind of pushing it away. So it's like you have to want it, but not need it.
Yeah.
So it's like wanting it's okay, needing it is a different thing. And so if you want it, that's great, but then you have to not need it. So you have to be like, I'm okay with this not turning out the way I want it to be. Yeah. And when you go through that, or maybe you play those scenarios through your mind, you play out the worst case scenario and it's like, okay, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still a beautiful person. I still have lots to offer to the world. This just wasn't the journey I was meant to go down with this person. If you go down that, then you can go, okay, I can survive that. It makes that interaction easier because you're like, if this is meant to be, it's meant to be. I want this. I don't need this, but it would be great. And that's like, it's still so hard because it's like, because I've been through that where I'm like, but it helps me kind of push through that like fear of that. Like, what if it's not reciprocated? It's because I'm holding on to that now needing, as opposed to just like allowing and wanting.
It's the attachment, right? So it's good to desire. Desire's fine. Attachment is where we kind of get screwy with our vibrations. So it's kind of like desire with surrender and finding that beautiful balance in the middle. That's the hard part, right?
And it is a balance.
Yes, we know.
I was gonna say, so when I was young, I used to. I remember, I have this vivid memory of there was a thunderstorm rolling through town, and it got windy, and the sky was all sorts of wild colors. And I used to be very, very afraid, very fearful of a natural disaster taking me out. And so I have this image of me sitting in front of the television, watching the Weather Channel, and anticipating this natural disaster that was going to roll through the city and take us out. Never happened. Um, and so eh, the reason I'm bringing this up is because as time has gone on, I've sort of gradually found myself on the other side of this fear of a natural disaster taking me out every time a storm happens. And I've come to sort of recognize the nature of weather, and that, you know, sometimes it's going to rain outside, and if you know, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the sky is falling, right? Some people will go and grab an umbrella and put their rain boots on, and they'll go out and play in it. Some people will sit and stare out the window. Some people will make it mean something about, you know, the universe doing something. We all have these stories about the weather, but what we understand is the nature of weather, as it pertains to the nature of weather. It's like it's always changing. You know, we have cloudy moments, and then we have sunny moments. You know, and the sky's always blue on the other side. And I think coming to sort of realize that and apply it to the nature of our feeling and our thought as it pertains to, let's say, dating, because that's what we're talking about, has really shifted things for me. So I become less and less consumed with making what I'm experiencing mean anything significant. It's like, I'm having these feelings, they're okay. I'm having these thoughts, they're okay. They mean whatever I decide they mean, but really this is just sort of the nature of the human experience. Things happen, I think, I feel, and maybe I think that I am those thoughts or I am those feelings, but they're just kind of occurring. And that has helped me kind of separate from them in a way and navigate this with a bit more ease, recognizing that it's just like the weather. That's sort of the nature of the game, right?
Aw, that's a
Yeah.
beautiful, I think that's the perfect analogy to end on.
Yeah.
So, with all of that, everybody, thank you so much for watching another Gay Men Going Deeper. If you like this, please, please, please subscribe on YouTube if that's where you're watching. If you're watching on Instagram, give us a follow, give us a like, share it around with everybody, share it on Twitter, follow us on Twitter. We're on all the social medias. There's also links down below to all of these things, and also join the private Facebook group. If you're watching this and you're not part of our private Facebook group, please come and join us. We're an amazing group of gay men all sharing in this journey together. So thank you very much. Is there anything else that I missed? No, I think that's it. All right, we'll see you next time, everybody. Have a great one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.